because before this I was actually getting into advertising, and John's been playing loads of Mad Men, and I'm into Mad Men. You've seen that series, right?
No.
Mad Men is a series about set in the 60s or 70s,
yeah.
60s, about the advertising industry, and that's what I was going to do. And then I remember a specific moment where I was doing a work placement at this big agency called Ogilvy, who do all of Ford's advertising and I think Nike and like big clients. And I remember meeting the creative director, the guy who you see someone you think, if I continue my path, this is who I could become. And he was this kind of nervous, like weird bloke, right? Which I guess in the creative industries is kind of what they want. They want you to be weird and stuff. And it was around the same kind of time I'd read Daygame. And then I was suddenly presented almost with like two options to choose from. I could continue this path of advertising, this career path, and end up being that weird, creative, kooky guy who wears like a colourful bow tie and it's like, hey, I'm creative, right? Or the game, which is kind of crazy, but obviously I chose the game. I quit my career direction in advertising. Not knowing what the fuck I was going to do, but I just knew that wasn't going to lead to my happiness, because in advertising, usually in the accounts department, there's usually like really hot chicks, because they've got to deal with clients. And if the clients are male, just, the hot chick is always going to, like, this is true, right? If I'm a client and I want to work with an advertising agency and there's this guy and this really hot chick who's saying, listen, look after your advertising. I'm like, okay. So there's really hot chicks in this advertising agency, and I remember just like watching them walk past. It was I remember sitting there with my creative partner, and there was like this kind of glass window where we were working, and these just hot chicks would walk by. And then the creative director would come in, I'm like feeling that the inability to go and talk to the girls, and then seeing my future as this guy, and I was like, oh shit, because advertising is one of those careers where you have to dedicate your whole life to it. You have to like stay behind really late, and it's like it's cutthroat. Everyone wants the job because it's a cool job, like coming up with ideas all day. But yeah, then I read the game, and I decided that I was going to go down a slightly different path in life. So I just, again, luck would have it that I was on the LSS and there was a job posting on the commercial section of the LSS saying full-time graphic designer wanted PUA training. So I got that, and I moved in with PUA training to London, which is right by Oxford Street. So I moved in their office, which is pretty fucking cool if you think about it. Like,
yeah, they used to have like this really big project thing, right?
Project thing? No. What do you mean?
Didn't they have like people who like paid to live with them?
Yeah, they still have that. Yeah. That's not. Yeah, I mean they have that still. I think the PUA training residential.
Oh yeah.
And that was actually in a different flat, which was by Piccadilly Circus, which I've stayed there before. But this was actually right by Oxford Street. It's a bit smaller, and there was me living there. And at the time, it was Gambler's cousin who turned out to be crazy in the end. He was actually committed to a hospital for being crazy.
What?
But, yeah.
Rebecca.
But that was fun living with him. Yeah, no, nothing to do with pickup. He was just crazy. He was also like a very experienced Brazilian jiu-jitsu expert. So I survived that anyway. But yeah, so every day I was waking up, living in London. Which, for someone who hasn't lived in London before, that was so exciting when I first got to London, because I was from a little town, and all of a sudden you go out on Oxford Street. Has anyone been to London or been to Oxford Street? You step out of the tube onto Oxford Street, and it's like, whoa, craziness, so much excitement. And you know how I said you just get used to things? Like now, I live on Oxford Street, just off Oxford Street in London, and that's just my neighbourhood now. I could walk along and there's people bumping into me, and I think we should go grab coffee. I'm not even paying attention because I'm just so used to the busyness. It's just normal. But I remember how I felt. It was so exciting, and I was working and living with PUA training. I was like, fuck, this is crazy. And then just randomly, I met a guy called Yad on the LSS, and the reason why we kind of became friends, I think, is because because he was still living in Tottenham, which I think is like East London or something, with his mum. So I had this room in central London, literally right in the fucking middle, like 2 seconds from where I lived was the heart of Oxford Street, like Oxford Circus, if anyone knows what that is. That's where 2 minutes away. So I think Yad became friends with me because he wanted somewhere to fuck girls. So it's like, yeah, come out, yeah, you can come out with me, yeah, it's fine, yeah, we can go hang out. But really, he's profaning me because he wants to fuck some girls in my flat. Well, not my flat, but the pure trading flat. So, it was a value exchange. I was hanging out with him because I heard about him and I wanted to just sort of see what he was all about. And in return, we got to sort of bring girls back, I suppose. Not at the beginning. In the beginning, I wasn't very confident. So I remember the first time I followed Yad outside, and he was like, no, come on, come out with me. And I remember we were in Leicester Square. You've heard of Leicester Square?
Yeah.
It's like the PUA hub of London, and it's actually been kind of closed for not closed, but like loads of building work going on for an entire year, and it's just kind of opened back up again. It's a great place to practice Daygame because it's just like this big square of just hundreds of people, just like you could just spend all day there and just approach.
Like a nightclub?
Just like a nightclub.
Really? Wow.
And I remember the first girl I saw him approach. It was in the distance, and by the way, up until then, the only approaching I'd heard about was, open shoulder, hey, excuse me, like, indirect, or, I think that what Gambler was teaching on his boot camps at the time was going up to girls and saying, hey, excuse me, sorry to bother you, listen, I've got, my friend has just got married, but he's gone away on business, and he's asked me to buy a present for his fiancée, and I just don't know what to buy. Can you? That's what was the Daygame section of the boot camp. So that's what I thought was Daygame. You read the game and it's all about. Excuse me, you look like a bunny or something. I wasn't saying the game. You look like you've got a nose like a bunny, or you've got a C-shaped smile or whatever. I don't even understand what that means. So then I was with Yad, and we see this intimidatingly attractive girl in this black dress, long black dress. And yeah, just like a rocket, just literally like I'm a plane, just flies up to this girl. And I can't hear what's being said, but he just runs up and just stops her dead in her tracks. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is not what the book says you've got to do. And then she's laughing, and I'm like, what the fuck? And at the time, Yad had bleeding acne over his face. He was much more overweight than he is now. Terrible fashion. He just wore like a black t-shirt, just black baggy jeans and sort of some trainers, and that was it. He just looked like a homeless person. And I just remember thinking, like, what the fuck? And then I saw he got the number, and he came back. And at that point, I realised that I'd sort of found my guru, I suppose. But the problem was Yad was not very good at teaching. At least teaching me. There was no teaching that happened. Because I tried doing exactly what Yad did, like what he said, and at the time it was like, oh my god, can I just say something? It was kind of being a bit gay, and I tried that and it just didn't fit at all. But what did happen was, just by hanging out with Yad, and it took me a few weeks at least before I actually did anything myself, I just hung out with him and just watched him approach, just watched him, and part of it was because he was too quick. He'd see a girl and he's gone, like, there's no time to think. But I just wasn't ready yet. I was too nervous. But there just became a point, like I guess a biting point, where I was just like, well, I'd run out of excuses, like the excuses you might think of, like, why would a girl like me? Because this, because that, this. And then you see Yad approach, looking like the way he did, and Yad just smarted himself up low. It's like Yad looks awesome now compared to how he used to. But back then, like, it got to the point where I was like, well, he can do it. Like, there's no reason why I can't do it. I can't think of a reason why I can't do this and he can. Like, my logic was just my negative beliefs were just getting pummeled into the ground. To the point where it was just silly for me to say, well, I can't do it because it was like, then Yad would do it. I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense then. Okay, why else couldn't I do it? Okay. You know what I mean? Like, because I want your money. I was like, Yad's looking at home with his parents. Okay, that doesn't work. Because there was no more excuses left. And I was like, alright, and I was just getting, more and more frustrated, seeing Yad get all these numbers, and I was getting horny as well. I was like, fuck's sake, and then I just started doing it. And I remember the first time I approached a girl, the Yad style, which is just direct, not indirect, not saying, excuse me, do you know where, a dog is or something. So I went direct on this girl, and I've been watching a lot of Russell Brand. You know who Russell Brand is?
Yeah.
So I went out, I was listening to the Russell Brand podcast a lot. So I went up to this girl and said, you look bloody gorgeous. I was doing all sorts of And she was like, oh, thanks so much. I've got a boyfriend though, but thank you so much. And then she left, and I was thinking, fuck, that was awesome. Like, that felt so good. Like, I felt good about it. I didn't feel weird or, like I was doing some weird trick thing. I was like, oh, that felt awesome. So then I just started doing it. I started hanging out with Yad pretty much every day. He'd come round, and we'd just go out, because I still had to do the graphic design job with PO training. But we'd go out in the lunch break. We'd go out usually every day, and usually in the evenings as well. We did a lot of evening street game. He called it gutter game, which is kind of what it was. And I remember the first time there was this amazing experience when Yad approached these two girls who were stood outside this kind of restaurant or something. It was about 7 o'clock in the evening, so it was really dark. And so we were both chatting to them, and they said, oh, we're on this double date. The guys are inside right now. Chatting some more, and they said, oh, but they're really boring though. I was like, oh, you should come with us. So we convinced them to leave their date, go in and say goodbye to their evening, to leave them in there, come with us. We went for one drink round the corner, one drink. And we brought them back to the PUA training office, and then we're both in my room, and I'm playing my guitar really badly. It's just not very well, but it's enough just to, whatever. And then Yad, when we had a drink, when we were having a drink in this place, we actually, they went to the toilet, and we realised that the one Yad was chatting to was actually more into me, and the one I was chatting to was more into Yad. And me and Yad have done this a few times, where we go, okay, let's swap. So when they come back, we said, oh no, you come here, and we literally just switched over. And we've done that a few times actually, and which was cool, because I like my mum, I like blonde girls. And so we went back to the flat, and I'm with my girl, and sort of was tickling her or teasing her or whatever, and Yad just senses the moment and says, oh, come with, to the other one, says, oh, come with me. So he takes her to the office and closes the door. And then we get on and we start having sex. And this is like, I think from the time of having sex to meeting her, and this is not drinking as well, like one drink, just being social, not like being drunk. From meeting to having sex, maybe an hour and a half. Which for me, I'm sure guys who like go out in clubs and stuff, that's probably quite common. You go out and get drunk, you just pick a girl. But for the daytime thing, meeting a girl outside, they're on a double date, and then one drink and then back, and then I'm having sex with this guy. And afterwards, when they'd left, we went back out onto the streets, me and Yad, back out. It's still early, And I was literally like in a daze. I was like, what the fuck? Just that can't happen. The movies don't say that can happen, And I was literally in a daze. It's like, your reality is just kind of shattered. And Yad's got tons of stories of stuff like that happening, But for me, this sweet, innocent little boy, I was just overwhelmed. I was like, I can't believe that just happened, dude. That's just ridiculous. And yeah, that just paved the way. Like, one success just builds on another. And before you know it, it just becomes the most normal thing in the world to just think, well, like, just out here in Stockholm, I think, well, that guy gets the numbers, and then just start collecting the numbers, like, okay. And actually, I've got to the point now where, because when I went to Estonia with Yad, and just amazing, beautiful girls there, and I met this girl actually who was from Norway, and the connection was amazing. It took me by surprise, and it was just amazing. And now I get bored easily if I'm chatting to a girl and she's just a bit dull and boring, even if she's really hot. So the first day I was out in Stockholm getting numbers, the first day I had about 10 numbers, and I deleted all of them as soon as I got home, because I was like, no, they're boring. There was no kind of spark with any of them. So I went out, I think a few days later, and I got a few more numbers, and there was one girl whose number I got that I really liked, actually. But when you first start, you're probably not bothered about connection and stuff. I imagine I wasn't, just thinking, fuck it, they're hot. I want to put my penis inside them. It's fine, whatever, right? But along the way, you will meet like a girl, and you think, holy shit. And then after that, every other girl, you will realise, okay, like once you've tasted succulent chicken, dry bread just won't do anymore, So that's kind of my story in a very brief, a brief way. So let's just get into some hardcore techniques, I suppose.